The rain fell so hard that afternoon it blurred the entire city into shades of gray, but nothing was as cold as the expression on the woman's face when she looked at the exhausted single father standing outside the community center. His little daughter clung tightly to his hand, wearing a faded yellow raincoat that had clearly been patched more than once. They weren't asking for money. They weren't asking for sympathy. All they wanted was a chance. Yet with one glance at his worn jacket, old shoes, and tired eyes, she quietly decided he wasn't good enough. She turned away before she ever learned the story behind the man she had judged, never imagining that beneath the ordinary appearance stood the quiet founder and majority owner of one of America's largest Fortune 500 companies, a man who had chosen to live simply after unimaginable personal loss. Before we continue, if you believe kindness matters more than appearances and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone you care about, and subscribe to Kindness Corner for more inspiring stories that remind us what truly matters. Daniel Harper had once been the face of innovation. Decades earlier, he had built a technology company from a tiny rented garage into a global corporation that employed hundreds of thousands of people across the world. His ideas transformed industries, but success never became his identity. His greatest joy came from going home each evening to his wife, Emily, and their daughter, Lily. Then life changed in a way no amount of money could prevent. Emily lost her life after a sudden illness, leaving Daniel shattered. The grief stripped away every title and every achievement until all that remained was a father trying to keep a promise he had made beside his wife's hospital bed, that Lily would always grow up surrounded by love instead of wealth. Daniel quietly stepped away from public life. He refused interviews, avoided business magazines, and delegated almost every executive responsibility to trusted leaders. His ownership remained, but his name slowly disappeared from headlines. Most people assumed he had retired somewhere behind the gates of a luxurious estate. Instead, he moved into a modest neighborhood where his daughter could experience a normal childhood, free from the pressure that often follows famous families. He drove an old pickup truck, wore inexpensive clothes, and spent his mornings making Lily's lunch before walking her to school. The community center had announced a volunteer mentorship program for children who had lost a parent. Daniel believed Lily might finally find friends who understood her quiet sadness. The coordinator, Rebecca Collins, was respected throughout the city for organizing charitable events and speaking passionately about compassion. She smiled warmly for cameras, inspired donors with heartfelt speeches, and constantly reminded others never to judge by appearances. Yet when Daniel arrived that rainy afternoon, soaked from walking because his truck had broken down a few blocks away, Rebecca barely looked beyond his worn clothing. She assumed he would become another family needing financial assistance instead of someone offering to volunteer his own time. Without asking a single question about his background, she politely explained that the program had very limited space and suggested that other organizations might better suit their situation. Daniel thanked her with quiet dignity. He never argued. Lily squeezed his hand a little tighter as they walked back into the rain. She had noticed the disappointment in her father's eyes, even though he tried to smile for her. That evening, she asked him whether people were always judged by what they wore. Daniel paused before answering. He gently explained that many people never intended to be unkind. Sometimes they simply forgot that every stranger carried a story they could not see. Weeks passed and life continued in its simple rhythm. Daniel volunteered anonymously at homeless shelters, repaired bicycles for neighborhood children, and spent weekends helping elderly neighbors with home repairs. Very few people recognized him because the photographs published during his executive years showed a younger man in expensive suits instead of a father covered in sawdust and paint. His happiness no longer depended on recognition. It depended on watching Lily slowly laugh again after months of heartbreak. Meanwhile, Rebecca struggled with growing financial problems at the community center. Donations had declined, maintenance costs continued rising, and several important youth programs faced closure. She spent countless hours searching for sponsors, sending proposals to corporations that rarely responded. One announcement finally brought hope. A respected Fortune 500 company planned to launch a nationwide initiative supporting local family centers. Winning the grant would save nearly every struggling program. The selection committee requested an in-person presentation at the company's headquarters. Rebecca worked tirelessly preparing every detail. She imagined presenting to powerful executives she had only seen in magazines. She rehearsed her speech until every sentence sounded perfect. The morning finally arrived, and she entered the magnificent headquarters filled with towering glass walls, inspiring artwork, and employees moving with quiet confidence. She was escorted into a spacious conference room where several senior executives welcomed her warmly. Then the doors opened one final time. The last person to enter was Daniel. He was dressed in a simple navy suit that fit him perfectly. There was no dramatic entrance, no bodyguards, and no attempt to embarrass anyone. Every executive in the room immediately stood with genuine respect. Rebecca watched in stunned silence as the company's chief executive introduced Daniel not merely as the founder, but as the majority owner whose vision had shaped the organization from its first day. The room fell completely silent, except for the sound of her own heartbeat. Daniel recognized her instantly. His expression showed neither anger nor satisfaction. Instead, it carried the same calm kindness she had dismissed weeks earlier outside the community center. Rebecca felt every assumption she had made come crashing down at once. She realized she had evaluated a man's worth within seconds without asking his name, his experiences, or the reason behind the tired look in his eyes. As she delivered her presentation, guilt weighed heavily on every word. She no longer worried about securing the grant. She worried about the person she had become. After the meeting ended, she quietly apologized. She admitted she had judged him based solely on appearances and confessed that the realization had deeply shaken her. Daniel listened patiently. He explained that forgiveness was easier than resentment because resentment only extended pain. He told her the rejection itself had not hurt nearly as much as knowing his daughter had witnessed someone deciding their value before learning anything about them. Those words stayed with Rebecca long after the meeting ended. The board unanimously approved the community center's funding, but Daniel added one condition. The money would support new training programs focused on empathy, dignity, and serving every family without prejudice. Every volunteer would learn to ask questions before making assumptions. Every child and every parent would be welcomed with equal respect regardless of appearance or income. Months later, the center became known throughout the region for treating every visitor with extraordinary compassion. Families who once felt invisible discovered a place where they belonged. Rebecca often stood at the entrance greeting each person personally, remembering how one painful mistake had transformed her understanding of kindness forever. Lily also returned to the center, not as a rejected child, but as a participant surrounded by friends who understood loss and healing. Her laughter slowly returned, and Daniel finally saw hope replacing grief in her eyes. He realized that real success had never been measured by stock prices or skyscrapers. It lived inside moments when broken hearts found comfort and strangers chose compassion over judgment. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs this reminder today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner so more people can discover stories that inspire kindness and second chances. Special request. Before this story ends, please leave a comment with one simple sentence. Kindness sees what appearances hide. Your words may encourage someone who is struggling today. In the end, Rebecca never remembered Daniel as the billionaire she had failed to recognize. She remembered him as the father who chose forgiveness when pride could have chosen revenge. Daniel never celebrated proving anyone wrong because that was never his goal. Instead, he quietly continued living the life he had promised his late wife he would build. A life where humility mattered more than headlines, where his daughter learned that true wealth was measured not by what people owned, but by how they treated those who could offer nothing in return. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. The richest people are not always the ones with the biggest fortunes. Sometimes they are the ones whose hearts remain gentle after life has given them every reason to become hard, reminding all of us that kindness will always reveal a person's true value long before money ever can.